According to the cloud now. All right, so we're going to start our half Torah reading today, and we're going to first go to, let's see here. We got Genesis chapters 41 to 44. What we're going to be doing from now on, under suggestion by a couple of my brothers and sisters in fellowship, instead of the Targums, I will be paralleling the Samaritan Pentateuch with the Septuagint. So, and if you're interested, the Samaritan Pentateuch you can actually get for free on eSword, not my sword though. So that's the only shame about that, is that you have to have eSword on your PC to get this translation, the SPE. So here we go. We're gonna go, and let me just get it on the right book here. Genesis 41 to 44. I'll be starting us off here. All right. And it came to pass after 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream. He thought he stood upon the bank of the river. Okay. And lo, there came up as it were out of the river 7 cows, fair in appearance and choice of flesh. And they fed on the sedge, meaning, the cud. Mm-hmm. And other 7 cows came up after these out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and fed by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the 7 ill-favored and lean cows devoured the 7 well-favored and choice-fleshed cows, and Pharaoh awoke. And he dreamed again, and behold, 7 ears came up on one stalk, choice and good. Okay. All right. Moving on here. And behold, 7 ears thin and blasted with wind grew up after them. And 7 thin ears and blasted with the wind devoured the 7 choice and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. And it was morning, and his soul was troubled, and he sent and called all the interpreters of Egypt, talking about basically magicians. I kind of like how the Samaritan Pentateuch here says magicians, a little bit more literal there, of Egypt, and all her wise men, and Pharaoh related to them his dream. And there was no one to interpret it to Pharaoh. Okay, kind of sounds like the story of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yep.
And the chief cupbearer spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I this day remember my fault. Okay.
Interesting.
And Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put us in prison in the house of the captain of the guard, both me and the chief baker. And actually what he means by his fault, he's referring back a couple of chapters where Joseph says to the chief cupbearer specifically, he says, when you're restored in your office, remember me. So that's what this guy means by I remember my fault. Mm-hmm. Anyway, continuing, verse 11 here. And we had a dream both in one night, I and he. We saw according to his dream. Okay. The only difference here is Samaritan Pentateuch says interpretation of the dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew servant of the captain of the guard, and we related to him our dreams, and he interpreted them to us. And it came to pass as he interpreted them to us, so also it happened both that I was restored to my office and that he was hanged. And Pharaoh, having sent, called Joseph, and they brought him out from the prison and shaved him and changed his dress, and he became, changed his clothes, and he came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have seen a vision. There is no one to interpret it. But I have heard say concerning you that you did hear dreams and interpret them. And Joseph answered Pharaoh and said, without Alua, an answer of safety shall not be given to Pharaoh. Now, it's interesting, an answer of safety. That's what the Septuagint has here. Very interesting. So that's interesting. Peace, safety, similar. Okay.
My Septuagint says deliverance.
Yeah, it depends on what text family the Lexham English Septuagint is using. There's actually multiple text families they use. And if I'm not mistaken, the Lexham that you and I have, our physical Septuagints are a little bit different from Breton. They use the Henry Sweet Greek Septuagint from Bible Hub as their source for their translation, rather than the Bretons. So anyway, and Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, in my dream, I thought I stood, I guess me thought would be I thought. I stood by the, yeah, here we go with the British here.
Oh
with
my goodness.
Breton in, Sir,
yeah, that's real English.
Sir Lancelot Breton here has to put, old British word for me here. Me thought I stood by the bank of the river. Oh, Brett, you're killing me here, bud. And there came up, as it were, out of the river 7 cows, well favored in choice flesh. And they fed on the sedge. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, evil and ill favored and lean flesh, such that I never saw, worse in all the land of Egypt. Wow, the Samaritan Pentateuch just says badness. That's kind of diluting it a little bit. And the 7 ill-favored and thin cows ate up the 7 first good and choice cows. Okay. Verse 21 here. And they went into their bellies, and it was not perceivable that they had gone into their bellies, and their appearance was ill-favored, as also at the beginning, and after I woke, I slept. Interesting. And saw again in my sleep, as it were, 7 ears came up on one stem full and good, and other 7 ears thin and blasted with wind sprang up close to them. And the 7 thin and blasted ears devoured the 7 fine and full ears. So I spoke to the interpreters, or, magicians, as the Samaritan Pentateuch has here. And there was no one to explain it to me. What's interesting to me is this seems very similar to how Yahusha talks about the parable of the sower, and the how Yahuwah says, let the 2 grow together. I just, somehow that got brought up when I was reading that verse where it talks about the other bad looking ones were growing up right next to them. So I don't know if there's any connection there, but I thought it was pretty interesting that it's kind of similar. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. Whatever Alua does, he has shown to Pharaoh. And the 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream of Pharaoh is one. And the 7 thin kine that came up, or I guess kin, not kine, kin, that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 thin and blasted ears are 7 years. There shall be 7 years of famine. Okay, let me try something here. I think the Complete Apostles Bible will be a little bit easier to read. So I was at verse 30 there? I think. Let's see. 7 years of famine. Okay, so yeah. All right, so verse 28, and as for the word which I have told Pharaoh, Alua has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Interesting, very similar to Nebuchadnezzar. Behold, for 7 years there is coming great plenty in all the land of Egypt. Okay. But there shall come 7 years of famine after these, and they shall forget the plenty that shall be in all Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by the reason of the famine that shall be after this, for it shall be very grievous or burdensome. And the concerning the repetition of the dream to Pharaoh, twice it is because the saying which is from Alua shall be true, and Alua will hasten, meaning, he will quickly accomplish it. So now then, select a wise and prudent man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh make and appoint local governors over the land, and let them take up a fifth part of all the produce of the land of Egypt for 7 years of the plenty. And let them gather all the food of these 7 good years that are coming, and let the grain be gathered under the hand of Pharaoh. Let food be kept in the cities. And the stored food shall be for the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land shall not be utterly destroyed by famine. And the word was pleasing in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to all his servants, shall we find such a man as this, who has the spirit of Alua in him? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, since Alua has shown you all these things, there is not a wiser or more prudent man than you. You shall be over my house. Here we go. Same phrasing from Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. You shall be set over my house, and all my people shall be obedient to your word. Actually, it's a little bit stronger than Nebuchadnezzar's story. They shall be obedient to his word. Only in the throne will I excel you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, behold, I set you this day over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took his ring off his hand and put it on the hand of Joseph, and put on him a robe of fine linen, and put a necklace of gold about his neck. And he mounted him on the second of his chariots, and a herald made, or herald means like hired servant, made proclamation before him and set him over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh. Without you, no one shall lift up his hand on all the land of Egypt. Okay, verse 45. And Pharaoh called the name of Joseph Zaphnath Paaneah, and he gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, or Potipharah, priest of Heliopolis, as a wife. And I think On is like the Hebrew version of Heliopolis, so it's the same place. It's just a different word.
Right.
Or On might actually be the Egyptian name. I would have to look that up historically, what On is. So anyway, over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. And the land produced in the 7 years of plenty whole handfuls of grain. And he gathered all the food of the 7 years in which was plenty in the land of Egypt. And he laid up the food in the cities and the food of the fields of a city round about it, and he laid up in it. Okay. And Joseph gathered very much grain as the sand of the sea until it could not be numbered. Now that is extremely interesting. We'll get back to that once we do read the whole Genesis portion. I'll definitely have a cross-reference for that. So I'll have to take a note of that. Let me just write down verse 49, just as a physical note.
Must have been a lot if they stopped keeping records.
Well, the phrase "the sand of the sea" is definitely important.
Oh, very much.
Prophetic type of marker
Oh,
there. The Abrahamic covenant and all that. So I'll definitely get back to that once we read chapter 44. And to Joseph were born two sons before the 7 years of famine came, which Asenath. Now this is going to be an important one too to go back to. The daughter of Potipharah, the priest of Heliopolis, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. So this is where we get the tribe of Manasseh from. For Alua, he said, for Alua has made me forget all my toils and all my father's house. And he called the second, name of the second, Ephraim. For Alua, he said, has increased me in the land of my humiliation. Now that's pretty interesting that Ephraim means to be increased, or that Yahuwah has increased him or multiplied him in the land of his humiliation. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, moving on. Verse 53, and the 7 years of plenty passed away, which were in the land of Egypt. Okay. So Samaritan Pentateuch adds here were ended, which is kind of interesting. And the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph said, and there was a famine in all the land. But in the land of Egypt, there was bread. Okay. So notice how it says bread. So again, in the British language, when it says corn, it's not really referring to what we call corn today. It's referring to any type of grain. So that's why it would say bread there. Okay. And all the land of Egypt was hungry, and all the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, go to Joseph and do whatever he shall say to you. Do. And yeah, again, the Samaritan Pentateuch here has do. All right. And the famine was on the face of all the earth, and Joseph opened all the granaries and sold to all the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. Okay, so Samaritan Pentateuch has a little bit more in that verse, in verse 56. And all the countries came to Egypt to buy from Joseph, for the famine prevailed in all the earth. Okay. Because that famine was so sore in all the lands. Okay. So it seems like this famine even reached the whole earth, which is pretty interesting. So anyway, we're going to move on to chapter 42 here. All right. So again, I'm comparing the Samaritan Pentateuch with Septuagint here. Okay. And Jacob, having seen that there was a sale of grain in Egypt, said to his sons, why do look at one another? Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Now go down by and buy for us a little food, that we may live and not die. Okay. The 10 brothers of Joseph went down to buy grain out of Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, whoops, okay, stupid scrolling thing, lest some calamity befall him. And the sons of Yasharel came to buy with those that journeyed from the famine, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Okay. Now Joseph was ruler over the land, and he sold to all the people of the land. And the brothers of Joseph, having come, bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Okay. And when Joseph saw his brothers, he knew them and estranged himself from them and spoke harsh words to them. So it seems like Joseph's hiding his appearance, even estranged himself. That's interesting. Or maybe he acted weird. Maybe it's not really his physical appearance, but more his personality.
Well, he would look very different anyway.
Yeah, he got shaved. You know. We just read in the last chapter, he got shaved and his clothes changed.
Garments and stuff like that.
Yeah. from them. What is going on here? I'm getting. Oh, okay. So Sister Sadia wants to join. Anyway, for people who are joining right now, we're now in the second chapter of our Torah reading for today. So we're at chapter 42, verse 7. Where Yosef, it says, it estranged himself from them and spoke harsh words to them, said to them, where do you come from? And they said, out of the land of Canaan to buy food. And Yosef knew his brothers, but they did not know him. And Yosef remembered his dream which he saw, and he said to them, you are spies. You have come to see the exposed parts of the land. But they said, no, my master, we, your servants, have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are peaceable. Your servants are not spies. Okay, verse 12 here. And he said to them, no, but you have come to see the exposed parts of the land. Okay. And they said, we, your servants, are 12 brothers in the land of Canaan. Behold, the youngest is with our father today, but the other one is not. And Joseph said to them, this is that I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. Okay, verse 15. All right. In this manner shall you be tested by the life of Pharaoh. You shall depart. Okay. You shall not depart from here unless your younger brother comes here. Send one of you and take your brother, and you shall be kept in prison until your words may be tested, whether you speak the truth or not. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. Now, I don't know if there's any connection here, but I'm getting like the feeling of Revelation here. You're tested 10 days. You know, some of you will be in prison, but, you know, I don't know if there's any connection there, but I just find it interesting. It's a similar scenario of, you know, even though it's a righteous man, you know, having his brothers being put in prison, but I just find it interesting. The wording is kind of similar. You know, you'll be tested and kept in prison and tested. So that's interesting. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. Okay, and then, there's a whole other paragraph here. Samaritan Pentateuch says, and they are saying not, he is able, our younger brother, to forsake his father, because if he will forsake his father, he will die. Okay. And he put them in prison 3 days. Okay, interesting, 3 days.
Yeah.
He said to them on the third day, do this and you shall live, for I fear Elua. Okay, verse 19. If you are peaceable, let one of your brothers be detained in prison, but go and carry back the grain you have purchased. And bring your younger brother to me, and your words shall be believed. But if not, you shall die. And they did so. Okay. And each said to his brother, yes, indeed, for we are in fault concerning our brother when we disregarded the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear him. Therefore has this affliction come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not hurt the boy? And you would not listen. Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. But they knew not that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter. Interesting.
Yeah.
Septuagint says there is an interpreter, and so does the Samaritan Pentateuch, between them. And Joseph turned away from them and wept. And again he came to them and spoke to them, and he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their vessels with grain and to return their money to each into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And it was so, I'm sorry about that, stupid throat. And it was so done to them. And having put the grain on the donkeys, they departed from there. Okay. Okay, let me just make sure. Yeah. All right. And one having opened his sack to give his donkeys fodder at the place where they rested, okay, saw also his bundle of money, for it was on the mouth of his sack. Stupid thing. Stop doing that. Okay. All right. And he said to his brothers, my money has been restored to me, and behold, it is in my sack. And their hearts sank, and they were troubled, saying one to another, what is this that Eluah has done to us? And they came to their father Jacob into the land of Canaan and reported to him all that had happened to them, saying, the master of the land, spoke harsh words to us and put us in prison as spies of the land. And we said to him, we are men of peace. We are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is with his father today in the land of Canaan. And the master of the land, said to us, by this shall I know that you are peaceable. Leave one brother here with me, and having taken the grain you have purchased for your family, depart. And bring to me your younger brother. Then I shall know that you are not spies, that you are men of peace, and I will restore you your brother, and you shall trade in the land. And it came to pass, as they were emptying their sacks, there was each man's bundle of money in his sack. And they and their father saw their bundles of money, and they were afraid. And their father Jacob said to them, you have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and you will take Benjamin as well. All these things have come against me. And Reuben spoke to his father, saying, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Ooh, that is a dangerous oath. That is really dangerous. Give him into my hand, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, because his brother is dead, and only he has been left. And suppose it shall come to pass that he is afflicted by the way by which you go, then you shall bring down my old age with the sorrow to Sheol, Hades, the grave. Okay, so that's what Hades is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, come on, you stupid E-sword. You're messing up right now. Really not the time to be messing up. All right, hold on a second, guys. Stupid thing. Let's see here. All right, come on, E-sword. Come on, hurry up. Okay. All right. So now we're going to Genesis 43. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. All right. Parallel. Here we go. Change to SPE. Okay. Merge and Pentateuch English. And Complete Apostles Bible. Okay. Here we go. All right. But the famine prevailed in the land. And it came to pass, when they had finished eating the grain which they had brought out of Egypt, that their father said to them, go again and buy us a little food. And Yehudah spoke to him, saying, the master of the country, positively testified to us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your younger brother is with you. If then you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you do not send our brother with us, we will not go. For the man spoke to us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your younger brother is with you. And Yasharal said, "Why did you harm me, inasmuch as you told the man that you had a brother?" And they said, "The man closely questioned us about our family, also saying, 'Does your father yet live? And have you a brother?' And we answered him according to this question, 'Did we know that he would say to us, bring your brother down?' And Yehuda said to his father, Yasharal, 'Send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and our store.'" Interesting, our store instead of our little ones. That's weird. Okay. Probably just a translation error. Okay. Come on. Stupid thing. Okay. All right. Here we go. "And I myself will be security for him. At my hand you shall require him. If I bring him not to you and place him before you, I shall be guilty toward you forever. For if we had not lingered, we would have returned twice by now." Okay. And Yasharal, their father, said to them, "If it be so, do this. Take of the fruits of the earth in your vessels and carry down to the man presents of balm, honey, frankincense, and myrrh, pistachio nuts, and walnuts." Okay. All right. "And take double money in your hands, and the money that was returned in your sacks carry back with you, lest perhaps it was a mistake." Okay. "And take your brother, arise, go down to the man." Okay. All right. "And may Allah give you favor in the sight of the man, and send away your other brother and Benjamin. For I, accordingly, as I have been bereaved, am bereaved." And the men, having taken these presents and the double money, took Benjamin in their hands, and they arose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. And Joseph saw them and his brother Benjamin, born of the same mother. And he said to the steward of the household, "Bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal and make ready, for the men are to eat with me at noon." And the man did as Joseph said, and he brought the men into the house of Joseph. And the men, when they perceived that they were brought into the house of Joseph, said, "We have been brought in because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first, even in order to make a case against us, and lay it to our charge to take us for servants and our donkeys." And having approached the man who was over the house of Joseph, they spoke to him in the porch of the house, saying, "We pray you, sir, we came down at first to buy food. And it came to pass when we came to the encampment that we opened our sacks, and there in our sacks was each man's money. We have now brought back our money in full weight in our hands. And we have brought other money with us to buy food, and we know not who put the money into our sacks." And he said to them, "Allah deal mercifully with you. Be not afraid. Your Allah, the Allah of your fathers, has given you treasures in your sacks. And I have enough of your good money." And he brought Simon out to them. And he brought water to wash their feet and gave feed to their donkeys. Well, we obviously know that's a custom that Yahusha does in the Brit Hadashah, and it seems like it goes all the way back to here with Joseph doing this for his brothers. So I think that's possibly a prophetic thing. I mean, I can't really prove it, but possibly it could be a foreshadowing as him being a type of Yahusha there. So anyway, All right, so let's see here. Wash their feet, and he gave their donkeys provender. Okay. And they prepared their gifts until Joseph came at noon, for they heard that he was going to dine there. Okay, and Joseph entered into the house, and they brought him gifts. Whoops. Why does it keep doing this? Oh my goodness. You stupid, stupid, stupid thing. Stupid, stupid thing. I don't know why I did that. All right. Okay. All right. So we were at what verse did I stop at, Mom? 26 or
Yes.
yeah. Figured that. All right. When Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand in the house and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them of their welfare and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spake, is he yet alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is yet alive. He is saying, bow because he is a..." Oh, they bowed and prostrated themselves. Okay, so the Samaritan Pentateuch has it worded a little weird here. A man bowed because he is a man of Alua, and they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. Okay. Joseph lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, born of the same mother, and he said, is this your younger brother, whom you spoke of bringing to me?" And he said, "Alua have mercy on you, my son." And Joseph was troubled, for his heart yearned over his brother, and he wanted to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. And he washed his face and came out and refrained himself and said, "Set out bread." And they set out bread for him alone, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians feasting with him by themselves, for the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews, for it is an abomination to the Egyptians. And we see this later on. There's like weird customs of the Egyptians where later on you'll see in Exodus, as we get further on than in the Torah on our Sabbaths. This is a concept you'll see a lot, especially in the Exodus story where Moses said, "How can I slaughter a slaughtering to Yahuwah here? It would be an abomination to the Egyptians," So there's a lot of weird rules the Egyptians had in their culture concerning shepherds. Shepherds are abomination to them, So, they sat before him, the firstborn according to his seniority, and the younger according to his youth. And the men looked with amazement, everyone at his brother. And they took their portions from themselves, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as the portions of the others. And they drank and were merry with him. Yeah, I wonder if like Benjamin's relationship with Joseph was like Yahusha's relationship with John. I kind of wonder. Like, John was Yahusha's favorite out of the disciples. And I kind of wonder if Benjamin was was Joseph's favorite out of the brothers. Just speculating. Anyway, we're at chapter 44 now, so we're going to read the last chapter of our Torah portion. Okay. All right, 44 verse 1. And Joseph charged the steward of his house, saying, "Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put the money of each in the mouth of his sack. And put my silver cup in the sack of the youngest, and the price of his grain." And it was done according to the word of Joseph, as he said. The morning dawned, and the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. Okay. And when they had gone out of the city and were not far off, then Joseph said to his steward, "Arise and pursue after the men, and you shall overtake them, and say to them, why have you returned evil for good? Why have you stolen my silver cup? Is it not this out of the cup which my master drinks?" And he practices. Yeah, see, this is where it gets weird. Okay, and he practices divination with it. You have accomplished evil in that which you have done. And he found them and spoke to them according to these words. And they said to him, why does our master speak according to these words? Far be it from your servants to do according to this word. If we brought back to you out of the land of Canaan the money which we found in our sacks, why should we steal silver or gold out of the house of your master? Okay, so all right, so hold on a second. That was verse 8, I believe. Yeah. Okay. With whomever of your servants you shall find the cup, let him die, and moreover, we will be servants to our master. Okay. And he said, now then it shall be as you say, with whomever the cup shall be found, he shall be your servant, and you shall be blameless. Interesting. And they made haste and took down every man his sack on the ground, and they opened every man's sack. And he searched beginning from the eldest until he came to the youngest. And he found the cup in Benjamin's sack. And they tore their clothes and laid each man's sack on his donkey and returned to the city. And Judah and his brothers came into Joseph while he was yet there and fell on the ground before him. Okay. And Joseph said to them, what is this thing you have done? Did you not know that that a man such as I can certainly practice divination? And again, this is very weird. I think this is a very weird translation for this word in this. Anyway, after we read this chapter, I'll go into the whole. The word divine doesn't always mean black magic and sorcery, so that's another thing. So, it could just be a very bad translation here, and so yeah, I'll show you that from the King James Dictionary that I have online. The actual, it's a general word for meaning to what's the word I'm looking for? According to the King James Dictionary, it means just to prophesy. So that word divine. And Judah said, what shall we answer to our master? Or what shall we say? Or how shall we clear ourselves? Alua has discovered the unrighteousness of your servants. Behold, we are slaves to our master, both we and with whom the cup has been found. Okay. Joseph said, far be it from me to do this thing. The man with whom the cup has been found, he shall be my servant. But as for you, go up with safety to your father. And Yehuda drew near him and said, I pray, sir, let your servant speak a word before you, and be not angry with your servant, for you are next to Pharaoh. Sir, you asked your servant, saying, have you a father or a brother? And we said to my master, we have a father, an old man, and he has a son of his old age, a young one, and his brother is dead, and he alone has been left behind to his mother, and his father loves him. Again, this is weird because we know their mother passed away like chapters ago. So again, this is just, it's weird. There's some type of understanding we're missing here, because almost every version of that verse says that. So we're definitely missing something there. Maybe it's not talking about literally left to his mother, as she would be alive or anything. So I don't know. We could just be misunderstanding that.
Mine's worded a little differently.
And you said to bring your servants, bring him down to me, and I will take care of him. And we said to my master, the child will not be able to leave his father, but if we should leave his mother, my bad, she be able to leave his father, but if he should leave his father, he will die. But you said to your servants, except your younger brother come down with you, you shall not see my face again. And it came to pass when we went up to your servant, our father, we reported to him the words of our master. And our father said, go again and buy us a little food. And we said, we shall not be able to go down, but if our younger brother go down with us, we will go down, for we shall not be able to see the man's face if our younger brother is not with us. And your servant, our father, said to us, you know that my wife bore to me 2 sons, and one is departed from me, and you said that he was devoured by wild beasts. I have not seen him until now. If then you take this one also from my presence, and an affliction happen to him by the way, then shall you bring my old age with sorrow to the grave. Now then, if I should go into your servant and our father, and the boy should not be with us, and his life depends on this lad's, whoops, I hate it when it does that. This lad's life, it shall be, it shall even come to pass when he sees the boy is not with us, that he will die, and your servants will bring down the old age of your servant, and our father with sorrow to the grave. For your servant has received the boy in charge from his father, saying, if I don't bring him to you and place him before you, I shall be guilty towards my father forever. Now then, I will remain a servant with you instead of the lad, a slave of my master, but let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with us, lest I behold the evils which will befall my father? Okay, so that's chapter 44 of Genesis here. And I just want to show here, because I know there's going to be questions about the whole divine thing. What does that mean? Yeah, so what I want to show here is the word divine. We tend to have a negative connotation on this word, and we only think divine as like, the pagans and how they, do occultic divination. I just want to show here that if you actually look at the King James Dictionary, which, pretty much that's the English that's being used in both of those translations. So you got to keep that in mind too. It's the old British language. Okay, with the word that I can divine. So let me see here. Let's see. I think it's called KJV 1611 Dictionary. And they get all these words from the Strongs, and also match their definitions to the Merriam-Webster 1833 dictionary. So the much older Merriam-Webster dictionary. You can even find the definition for what unicorn really means on this website. So I really like this website, av1611.com. So I just want to show here that this is a very generic word, and it's not always referring to, sorcery and stuff like that. Let me just see here. So let's see here. Here we go. Diverse. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, divination. To foretell. See divine. The act of divining, a foretelling a future event, or discovering things secret or obscure, by the aid of superior beings or by other than human means. So technically, in that broad of a definition, you can even say that Yahuwah is a superior being, right? He gave Daniel knowledge that Daniel wouldn't have known by himself. Now, obviously, Daniel didn't do weird occultic works to get that knowledge. Yahuwah just came to him in a dream. So all I'm trying to say is, if we actually take this word divination in its much broader, accurate definition, it's not always referring to what we think it's referring to. That's all I'm trying to say. Sometimes it's actually referring to positively telling prophecy. So I'm just saying that's just something to look into. I'll give you guys links to this website. This is av1611.com, the King James 1611 dictionary. So yep, go ahead, Brother Jeff.
Yeah, that divination, we can hear about the spirit of divination in the Old Testament, and that anybody who has it were to stone immediately. Not deliver the spirit, but stone them. We also can read that Paul's followed around by a girl who has a spirit of divination for however many days and nights, saying, "These are the men that lead you to the true way of Yahuwah," right? And he was greatly annoyed, turned around, and had that spirit of divination come out of her, right? It says the spirit of pythos, or python spirit, is the Greek word for that divination, spirit of divination, right? And we can see that in all these old relief pictures and carvings of Asherah, the female goddess. She's always got herself a snake. It's, I think it's like pictured what's behind the whole Babylonian thing. It's the spirit that's behind it, it seems. But like, we got people nowadays who are using divination. They looking at the stars and dividing the sky, and it is divination. And just because something is divine, divination comes from the word divine, but they don't support each other. Like his divinity and divination have nothing to do with each other. You know what I mean? They believe that they're using special means, special godly means to get an answer. And so
I like what Josh was saying. He put it in the chat. And I agree with what Josh was saying. Go ahead.
how do you get to the chat?
Right there.
Let's see. I see it right here.
I like what
But
Josh
it says, do you not know that? Yeah. So what he's saying is that maybe Joseph had to do it because he was under Pharaoh. It's possible. I don't know. I still feel like there's a translation issue with that verse. I don't think if Joseph would be righteous doing what the Egyptians did with using divination. If that's really what he was doing, he was using a cup to do sorcery. I don't believe that. That's just my opinion.
Hey, that's not what he said.
That's not what I was
That's not what he
saying.
said at all.
Okay. Because it said keeping up with the times or something. I was trying to understand what that message was talking about. Keeping up the appearances, a man such as I, they have thought.
What you just said. Here, hold on. Joshua can explain what he said.
Joshua, go ahead.
Hey, Josh, you want to come explain it? No, never mind. Yeah, but that's not what he was saying. Never mind. Maybe if he explains it, we'll understand better. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's okay. No problem. Yeah, that's a very confusing thing, and I see a lot of people stumble on that. So I would just say consider what the definition of that word is in the most general sense from that link I sent to the chat. So just consider that might be the case, that we might be putting a negative connotation on a word that is not always negative. So that's just something to think about. It could mean just to prophesy, from what the King James dictionary is saying. So I'm just saying it's possible we might be misinterpreting that verse about the cup and all that. So I'm just saying that's a possibility. So anyway, so we're gonna move on. I think I had very little notes for this. I mean, this is pretty much substandard. You could kind of get the whole meaning of these chapters just from reading it. There wasn't many two connections. There were some connections I already mentioned. So I think we can move on here and go to let me just go back here. I was doing some other stuff earlier in the day. All right, so let me go to Half Torah and go to see here. All right, whatever. This stupid share screen is messing up. So now I'll be also reading, because it's very short. I'll be reading 1 Kings chapter 3 for us. It's a very short one. It's 1 Kings 3:15 to chapter 4. And I think it's verse 15 also. Oh, no, not verse 15. Chapter 4, verse 1. So 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 15 to 4, verse 1, I'll be reading for us. So just give me a second to turn there. I'm going to be using my Lexham English Septuagint to be reading it. And from as far as I know, there's no main differences, so I'm not going to put anything on the shared screen. From what I read earlier in the week, it's pretty much almost exactly the same with the Masoretic, so there's no reason to really put a shared screen up for this one. Let's see here. Okay. So, you know, let's see here. You know, so it says in chapter 3, First Kings, I'll be starting at verse 15 here. Okay. See here. Trying to find my place here. And Samuel slept. Oh no, hold on. Whoops, I keep forgetting. Oh, I keep forgetting, man. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure. Yeah, I keep forgetting. It's actually Third Kings in the Septuagint. They're all kings. There's 4 books of kings in the Septuagint canon. They don't call it Samuel, so I always get confused sometimes. My bad, guys. Yeah. So in the Septuagint, First Kings would actually be Third Kings. Just FYI, if you have a physical Septuagint, it's a little different with the names sometimes. Let's see here. Here we go. Chapter 3, starting at verse 15 here. Okay. Let's see. It says, Solomon woke up and look, it was a dream. He arose and went to Jerusalem. He stood at the face of the altar that faced the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah at Zion. He offered up burnt offerings and made peace offerings. He made a great banquet for himself and for all his servants. Then 2 women who were prostitutes appeared before the king and stood before him. The one woman said, Please, master, I and this woman live in a single house, and we bore children in the house, and it came about on the 3rd day when I gave birth, and this woman also gave birth, we were together. And no one was with us other than the 2 of us in the house. And the son of this woman died in the night as she fell asleep on him. She arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my arms and rested him in her arms. And her son who had died rested in her arms. I arose early to suckle my son, but that one had died. And look, I observed him early. And look, he was not my son to whom I had given birth. The other woman said, No, my son was alive, but your son had died. So they spoke before the king. And the king said to them, You say, This is my son who lives, and the son of this one has died. And you say, No, my son lives, and your son has died. And the king said, Take a sword. They brought the sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the infant who suckles and who lives into 2. Give half of him to this woman, the half of him to this other woman. The woman whose son was living answered and said to the king, Because her womb was troubled for her son. And she said, Please, master, give her the infant, but do not kill him. The other said, Let it be neither mine nor hers. Divide the child. The king answered and said, Give the infant the one who said, Give this one to her, and do not kill him. This one is his mother. All Yasharal heard this judgment that the king made, and they were fearful from the face of the king, for they saw that the wisdom of Alua was with him to administer duty. So basically, it's saying the spirit of Messiah was in him. So it's very interesting. So Solomon uses the wisdom Yahuwah gave him after, earlier in the chapter, even though it's not part of our Haftarah portion this week. If you read from the beginning of chapter 3, it gives you the context of the dream and all that, and how Solomon just asked Yahuwah for the wisdom to be able to rightly rule Israel, right? So Yahuwah fills him basically with his spirit to be able to discern between the right party or not. And Solomon knew in his foreknowledge that, okay, most likely the right mother is not going to want her child to be torn in 2. She would rather give that baby away than that happening. So that's pretty much what happens here. And let's see, I think the last thing we have here is verse 1 of chapter 4. King Solomon was ruling over Yasharal, and then it goes on to the leaders of his, and the Zadokites and all that. But anyway, so that was First Kings chapter 3 verse 15 to chapter 4 verse 1. What I'm seeing a common thread here between what we just read in Genesis and here is the common thread with the children, the swapping of the children. It seems like that's why they would want to combine this chapter of First Kings and Genesis. So what we just read in Genesis about, keeping one of the sons behind to be with Yosef and stuff like that. So it seems like there's some type of connection that the person who made this Torah portion is trying to get. So let me see here. So now we're up to, we got 2 Samuel coming up and Psalms 91 to 106. I think we're going to take a short intermission because I'm pretty sure by now brothers and sisters got to eat or need coffee or something. And the last good part of this study is going to be a long one. So I'm going to shut off this recording for right now because we're going to need a whole brand new recording for this. I don't want to make our studies like 5-6 hours at a time. No one will be able to watch them. So I'm going to stop the YouTube live. We'll be back on shortly. So stay tuned, everyone. Next, we'll be doing 2 Samuel chapter 8. So please stay tuned. Okay.